Hey, good morning everybody. How you doing? So had a crazy week this week. I normally try to get my videos done, a couple of videos in advance, and I have at least one to post up Saturday mornings at 8. But my wife and my kids all came down with the flu this past week, and it's been crazy around here to say the least. So I hadn't taken any video to get up for Saturday morning. I apologize for that. However, we got a good one today. So a couple things for today's video. One, if you look inside this missing emblem hole, you can see my fuel tank is now green. Well, it's green because I had to replace it. So I took the other one out. I cleaned it in preparations for rejuvenating the fuel system with a new injection pump and injectors. And it had some pinholes in it, which I patched, but I guess they didn't want to stay patched, and I had a little weep to it. And if you know, my two pet peeves are leaks and flat tires. I can't stand either one. So I bit the bullet. New tank for this, $520 shipped. Ridiculous, but it's needed. And now I know not only is it super clean inside, but no leaks as well. So we got the new tank in there. And then the missing emblem from the pump front has really been bothering me. I looked around online. There's a couple of people that make aftermarket ones. There's some original ones, and they're like $200 to $300. Crazy to me to have to spend that much money on an emblem, but this guy ain't doing it. So I decided to make my own. So yesterday I got a piece of cardboard. I made myself a little template that fits right inside here, and the original emblem has little clips that hold it in here, and you can still get those fairly cheap. But what I ended up doing was I cut a piece of sheet metal out, and then on the back I have this bar that goes across, and I welded two nuts on there. So basically that cast frame will get sandwiched in between here, and it'll sit on there. And then I got good old trusty logo decal to stick on there. So we go ahead and install this on here real quick, and then I'll move on to the main part of today's video. It should slide inside here. Did a test fit yesterday and it seemed to work out all right. There we go. Pry that up inside. I tried to keep everything a little bit tighter than it needed to be so that it wouldn't wiggle out. There we go. Almost there. There we go. And now I'll tighten these up to crimp or clamp everything together. We should be good to go. A little more secure than just the original clips that snap in. All right, nice and tight. Look at that. Shine her up. Let's throw this decal on. Look at that. Better than the original. Alright, so it's been a little while since we've done anything with the skid steer. I did have all new hoses made. You might see that later in the video when we're in the garage. But really, I just kind of cleaned up some stuff around here to make some room. Next weekend, I'll be going to get the case skid steer finally off my trailer and loaded here in my work area. And getting that all over 3-point plow off the trailer, just to make sure the 300 is going to lift it okay and not have any issues before plow day next month. So anyway, wanted to clean up the area, make some more room. I actually moved the whole skid steer body back some more. I didn't need that much room in the back for the engine, so gives us some more room for parking other goodies. Anyway, the main video today is going to be fabricating a new fuel tank for this skid steer. I'll insert a photo here to show you what the old fuel tank looked like, but basically it was some kind of plastic like carry gas tank that someone had poked holes in to make a drain, a vent, and a fill. And wherever those fittings terminated into that tank, they sealed it up with RTV. The neck for the filler tube was basically a rubber hose, and again everything was cemented with black RTV, and I guess it worked because it did, but not the safest thing, that's for sure. And I always could smell fuel. It was always leaking a little bit, so it's gone. I brought it to the landfill and threw it away yesterday. I had some 12 gauge sheet metal cut. There's a local place around me called, shoot, now that I'm about to tell you, I can't remember. I want to say it's called like Metal Supermarket or Metal Supermarkets of America, something like that. But awesome place. You can get pretty much anything you need. Angle iron, pipe, sheet. They'll cut it to length, and you're basically just paying for the weight of the metal. So they don't charge you to cut it. So the tank pieces that I had, obviously I needed a top and a bottom and then the 4 sides. So I was able to get all the measurements I needed, and I gave it to them, and they cut them for me. They have a huge metal brake that just shears everything, so I don't have to worry about my square rectangle pieces being not plumb or square. So I'm assuming that everything hopefully will go together pretty well today as far as keeping everything square and true. So I'll bring you around to the back here. And I made sure I left extra room. You know, I didn't want to have it too tight in here. So here's the back of the skid steer, and you can see this section underneath is where the fuel tank is supposed to go. So obviously these tubes will be gone, but the engine sits on top of this frame here, and then down inside the back here, it's like a cargo trunk where you can slide a suitcase in, and that's where the fuel tank is supposed to sit. So a couple things when it came to measuring what size tank I wanted. Obviously the insides are wider than this outside opening. So my outside opening is looks like 20 3/4. So my tank width is 20 inches. That's to ensure that it will clear inside here. The depth from the back to the front here is about 19.5, and my tank is 18 inches. And then the height from the pan here to the bottom of this frame is about 8 1/4. My tank's only 7. So it will fit in here. It's kind of like the biggest that I feel comfortable, yet still give me room for moving stuff around. Now once I get this all cleaned up and wire wheeled and down to bare metal, I'm going to weld in some angle iron on each side so the tank will slide in nice and tight. It won't shift left to right. And I may even put something in the back here just to keep it from moving forward and backwards. So that's going to be today's video. I looked online at aluminum tanks. That was kind of really what I wanted to get for this, and I couldn't find one that fit those measurements. Kind of an oddball size. So it was either like they had like 17, 15, 12, 10, and 5-gallon tanks. I think there were some 2-gallon, but all of those tanks had one measurement that just wouldn't fit, right? So I figured, well, the next best thing is just to make my own. So yeah, the materials I think were about 80 bucks for the metal, if I remember right. And then I went to Home Depot and I bought a bunch of different fittings, which you'll see later in the video. And I want to say that was probably, geez, I don't know, maybe another 60. So for about 150 bucks to have a brand new fuel tank for this is pretty good. Metal obviously will last the longest. Not really too concerned about rust inside. A lot of these other skid steers, like the case that I have, the tank is actually an integral part of the frame of the tractor. So you have a steel tank that you really can't even like access to clean properly because it's part of the frame. So anyway, that's what I decided to do for this John Deere 70 skid steer. We're going to build our own steel tank, so let's get to it. All right, welcome back to the garage. So as you can see over here, I've got this big plastic tub that is full of my $1,600 worth of hydraulic hoses for the skid steer. And like I said, they send it back to me with you know, the new hose attached to the old hose. I can make sure the fittings are the same, the links are the same, has my old tag on it, and then you know, the tags that they put on so they knew what they wanted to do. So all the hydraulic hoses are new. Eventually we'll get those on once we get the frame down to metal, primed and painted. But again, back to task today. So here's the fuel tank components. As you can see, I've got the 18 by 20 tops and bottoms. It's 12 gauge. It's pretty thick. Not too thick that it's going to add a bunch of excess weight, but plenty for a tank. So basically it's going to sit about like that. And then we've got the 7 by 18 and the 7 by 20. and those are going to be the sides and the front and the back. So as you can see, obviously I got these about a week ago, but I had them sitting over there in the garage and they got some water. They're starting to flash rust a little bit. So the most important tip or best tip I can give you for welding is to make sure that your welding surface is clean. So I'm going to get my knotted wire brush cup and I'm going to go over all of these edges to remove any of this rust, corrosion, debris, oil, whatever. So cleanliness is godliness when it comes to welding. The cleaner the joints, the better your weld is going to be. You won't have all that splatter and jumping around and bubbling up and everything. So I'm going to get the wire wheel out and we'll get those cleaned up, and then we'll start getting this thing put together. Oh, I do have all my other components that I'll show you now for the tank. So this is going to be my fill line. It's black pipe. It's 1 inch, I believe. Is it an inch or inch and a half? Yeah, it's 1 inch. This is a 1 inch by 24, and I've got the cap for the top. I know this seems like a skinny fill neck for a tank, but the way I look at it, the race fuel jugs that I have, the fill spout is smaller than that anyway, so basically I can stick the fill spout in and tip it up and I'm good to go. So, you know, change that if you want. Obviously these cast pieces you can't weld, so the black pipe is basically what we'll use. We'll drill a hole in the tank, slide the black pipe in, make a bead around there. So that's my fill line. I had this, I was going to put a drain in it, but I'll be honest with you, because the tank's so small and that I can pull the whole thing out anyway, I can always pump it down and pull it out by hand. By not putting that drain in the bottom, just eliminates one more area where it could leak from. This is going to be my vent. So again, I've got the black pipe. I think this is 1/2 inch. Let's see what we got here. Yeah, 1/2 inch by 18. And I've got two 90s on there so that if it's ever out in the weather and it's getting wet, I'm not going to have water getting into my tank. And I'm probably going to weld some sort of screen on here as well to keep the mud daubers and bugs from making a home in there. And then finally is this amazing contraption. So this is going to be my suction line. So basically on the top here, I've got, I think it's a 3/8 barbed line. All these fittings will get, I don't know, I think I'm going to do some red Loctite maybe. I may even do some shrink wrap stuff to suck around. I don't know, we'll see how it goes. But you know, all these fittings are either cast or brass, except for this middle section here. That's again the black metal pipe, and that's the part that will get welded to my tank. So this section will stick up. I can simply stick my rubber fuel suction hose on there, and then from this part down, this is going to be my suction line. No screen or strainer here. I'm going to have an inline filter anyway, so again, we'll just make sure all these fittings are tight so that we're not sucking any air. But excuse me, yeah, basically the tank is gonna, the top of the tank's gonna sit right here. So in theory, my 7-inch tall tank, this should sit about 1.5 inches off the bottom. So that way there, I'm not pulling any sludge off the bottom. You know, I could always get a longer one of these. They sell them in like inch or 1/2 inch increments. But I think somewhere in there, about 1.5 inches though off the bottom of the tank should be good. All right. So now you know the plan. You've seen the materials. Let's get some work done. I'm going to clean up the rusty edges on this, and let's get this thing tacked together. Alright, so here we are back in the garage, and I've got everything cleaned up and ready to go. This section here is going to be the top of my tank, and I've already kind of taken some measurements of where I want these things. So this is where my fill is going to go in this corner here, my suction line and my vent line. So this will be the back side of the tank at the back of the skid steer, and that'll tuck up underneath. So really there's nothing critical about these measurements for mine. It's just basically tucking them into the corners and out of the way, making it easy access for engine maintenance. Some of the things we'll be using today are these step bits. So these are from Northern Tool, but if you've never used these before, they're amazing, especially when you're trying to drill larger size holes in like sheet metal or angle iron or whatever. You know, you can put a piece of tape on there to mark off what size you want to stop at, and then just boom, 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 you drill through from smaller to larger to the hole you need. So I'm going to drill these 3 holes just so that that part's done. And then what we'll do is we'll weld the bottom part of the tank with the 4 sides, get everything squared up. These things work pretty good too. These magnets here, you can get these pretty much anywhere. And just kind of as a quick reference here, you can kind of see what I'm talking about. It will allow you to ensure, you have to kind of play with it here, that you have some nice straight 90-degree corners for your tanks, or your whatever you're welding really. So what I'll do is I'll put some stitch welds in here, kind of do that all the way around, and get the bottom tray part, if you will, done. At that point I'll go through and I'll do complete welds on the outside and the inside for this bottom section of the tank. We'll install the fill line, the suction line, and the vent line in that top lid once we get those holes drilled out, and we'll weld those pipes in. So basically they'll just set down onto that box, and then for the top part we'll just do the outside welds. Obviously I'm not going to be able to weld the inside, but not too worried about it at that point. So I think by doing a weld on the outside and the inside will help keep us so we can keep fluid in there without it leaking out. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. I might not have to do inside and outside, but yeah. All right, so that's about it. Like I said, get everything cleaned up, everything's cut to size, we'll get the holes drilled, and we'll start putting this thing together. So let's knock out these holes real quick. Do this vent and suction line first. This taper bit on here goes up to 7/8. I should be able to push it all the way straight through, and that will get us the size we need for the suction line and the vent line. But I'm going to stop at the step before just to make sure it's easier to stop and drill more than to drill too much and then have to weld a big gap. Alright, I had that going into the wood too, which really don't need to do, but it does keep it from popping out on the bottom. Let's see, suction line, it's this one here. Alright, you can see I could probably almost even thread that in and start to weld that there, but I need the threads on the bottom for my suction line itself. So we do need to go to the next step, which is the last one, I believe. I'll check it here. Yeah, it's just the last step, so we'll go ahead and push through. There we go. And now this suction line I'm going to want to weld on this smooth part, not on the threads. So once this goes in, we'll hold it in place and put a nice bead around here. I'll flip it over and I'll get a bead on the bottom as well. Let's go ahead and get this vent line pulled out. I know it's the same size pipe, so we can just roll with that. I'm going to adjust my wood here a little bit so I don't have to drill through the wood as well. Just for sanity check, then pipe will go in. Again, bead on the top, bead on the bottom, good to go. You see on the bottom here, the one that I didn't use the wood, you got some chips and shrapnel. The other one not so much. Either way, we'll get either a grinder or the wire wheel and clean that up. So let's do this fill hole. For that one, I'm going to move up to the larger step bit because this one's too small. I could actually use this one to get this one started, and then we'll use the bigger bit at the end since I already got this one on here. Like I said, these bits are amazing. Throw a little lubrication if you want on there. So for my fill pipe, you know, you can use this vernier caliper, measure the outside width of that pipe, and we're at 1.624, and if I just transfer that right over to this bit here, you kind of see that on the second to last step it's got some play, and the last one it's a little too tight. So I think what we're going to do is we'll go through to the second to last step here, and then we'll let this one start to taper in. And what we might end up doing there is just leaving a little bit of that thickness so we can get a nice tight fit this pipe going in, and we'll weld from there. So for now we'll go to that second to last step. It'd help if I plug it in. Make sure you always unplug these when you're using your drill chuck to change the bits. Safety first. There we go, got some power. Alright, so as you can see, my hole isn't quite lined up with where I had that. But again, for my project here, it's not really that crucial. Let me see where we're at. Alright, the threaded part almost fits in, so we definitely need to keep going. And definitely have a drill with one of these handles if you can. Help it from ripping it out of your arm. Let's try that one. And probably thread that in. Yeah, look at that. That's what I'm going to do. So that's threaded in there. And we'll just get a nice bead around the top and flip it on the bottom. Take that back out. Very nice, very nice. And do a quick little grind to get all this shrapnel cleaned up. That ought to do it. If you haven't seen any other welding videos I did, I'll just show you what I got here, what we're working with. And it's nothing really too crazy or extravagant. This is a Lincoln Electric weld pack. I got this a few years ago. I don't know, probably 250 bucks. I got a little weld cart from Harbor Freight. And all my necessities, right? Some extra flux core, some butt weld. Let's see, we got some extra tips, extra shields, tons of clamps. And as you can see, 115, nothing crazy needed. This welder will do pretty much anything and everything you'll ever need to in the home environment, and then some. And if you don't have one, I highly recommend getting a self-darkening welding helmet. Makes things a lot easier. Obviously some good welding gloves. I don't have a welding table, so a welding table would be a nice, perfectly flat, smooth, hard metal surface in which to work on, and I don't have that. However, my garage floor, though cracked, has a nice section here that I have found to be pretty true. So that is where I do typically most of my welding. The only problem with that is obviously it's cold out and the concrete is cold and it acts kind of as a heat sink. So just be mindful of that when you're welding. Temperature can really make quite a difference in your welds. You know, typically the warmer the metal, it just kind of works and flows, even temperatures. When I start welding on cold steel, it's going to take a little bit more heat to get it warmed up, to start penetrating, and then it's cooling quicker than it would be if it was just set out to sit and cool on its own. But anyway, with that being said, you can see I've got my larger magnetic 90 in the middle, and I've got two smaller ones there to help kind of pull that in. I'm just going to put a couple little tack welds or stitch welds on here, and then we'll move our way around the box and see where we're at. We'll make sure the top sits on nice and square, and we'll do all our finish welding after that. So let me get this set up and let's see what happens. Alright, let's see what we're dealing with here. I'm not going to go to any crazy photo magic. Shut this down, get my ground off, get my magnets off, and let's see what we're dealing with here. The best thing to use at this point would be a little wire brush. Let's see, I got one right here. Kind of clean these up and see how we're looking, see what the penetration looks like, and see if I need to adjust the temperature or the feed rate. Get this clean so you can see what we got. I'm going to bring this over closer. I'm not a welder by any means. I'm a better grinder than a welder. But, alright, I need to increase my feed rate a little bit, and I'm going to bump up the temp. You can see, I mean, it's holding, but I don't have this one here. It's pretty much just on this side. This weld is on the bottom one. This one's kind of on both, but choppy. So, excuse me. Like I said, I'm going to turn up the feed rate, give me a little more wire. I'm going to bump up the heat. So we'll fill in these gaps in the middle here, and we'll see how we're looking. And then we'll go back and we'll weld back over these again. Good temperature coming through on the other side. So I think the penetration's okay. It's just not solid on the inside there. So let's flip this back and let's go for round 2. Let's see what we got here. Take this back off, clean it up again. Much better. Once I get this tank put together, I'm going to put a cap on obviously the fuel fill line, but excuse me, I'm going to take off the lines. Let me shut this off. The candy cane hook that's on the vent line, we'll take that off, and I'll put an air fitting on it. And I don't want to pressurize it to like blow the tank out, but you know, I'll put like 10 or 15 psi on there, and I'll put a ball valve in there, and we'll let it just hold and see if it holds pressure. If it holds air pressure, 15, 20 psi, whatever, I think it'll be fine holding some fuel. I'm going to continue putting the other 3 sides on this for now, and then we'll check back in when we weld the fuel fill, vent, and suction lines. So I now have something that somewhat resembles a tank. So got it welded up, all the seams on the outside and the inside good to go. So now it came out all right. It's a fuel tank, you know. At the end of the day, it's not even going to be seen. All right, so let's grab this top part here, and we'll start welding on our fill line, vent line, and suction line. Now's the time for us to start welding this pipe into the tank top. So same thing, I got a smaller version of one of those magnets. Going to insert the pipe and use it to hold it in place. If you want, you can use multiple to ensure it's straight. I'm just going to kind of eyeball this. It's a fuel tank for a skid steer, not a rocket ship. So I remeasured the suction line, and it's 6 1/4 inches long, and from the top of the tank to the bottom is 6 3/4 inches. So the bottom of that suction line will be about a 1/2 inch from the bottom of the tank, which is fine. It's a new tank. I don't expect in the time that I own this thing it's ever going to get that much sludge in there. Anyway, worst case scenario, if I need to pull this tank out and drain it, it's not that big. I can just drain it out through the fill line. I don't want to drill a hole in the bottom for a drain plug. It's just one more place that we can possibly have a leak. So, alright, I'm going to run the weld bead around the top of this tank here, and then I'm going to see if we can't like cap some of these and put some air to it and make sure it holds air. Because if it holds air, it'll hold fuel. And now's the time to find out that we have a leak before we put fuel in it. Got the top welded on. It's not an award-winning weld job, but I do believe it will hold, at least I hope anyway. So I'm going to cap off, let's see how I'm going to do this, cap off one of these lines. One of them I'm going to put a air tuck fitting, and the other one I'm going to see if I have a gauge and we'll put some air to it and see if she holds or if we got any leaks. So I guess my intent is, if it does drop pressure or I do hear a leak, we can spray soapy water on it, see where it's coming from, and do a little more metal melting in that area to resolve that problem. So let me see what I got for fittings and see if we can hook this up. Alright, I got a makeshift setup here. The fill cap, I just put some Teflon tape and put the cap on. Down here for the suction line, I've got a air hose fitting with a cutout valve on it so I can control the air going to the tank. And then on my vent line, I've installed a pressure gauge. This is from one of my spray guns, to paint, and it's got a little relief up here too, so we can bleed the pressure out. So I'm going to close this one and make sure my gauge is all the way open, because this is usually what regulates going into my spray gun. Let's see here, PSIG, so it goes up to 160. We're only going to go up to like 20. I think that'll be plenty for this test here. So I think we got enough air in the compressor. We'll put some air to it and see what happens. Alright, here goes nothing. I'm going to open this vent back up first here for a second, just in case things get crazy. I'm not trying to have this thing blow up in my face. And I've got this ball valve in the shut position. I'm going to attach my air hose, which apparently wants to leak. That's alright. Alright, I'm going to put a little air in the tank here. I feel it coming out here, so I'll shut that. Shit. Ooh, that scared me. Alright, I guess that's normal, right? So put a little more, I'm going to shut this. Put a little more in here. Holy shit. Oh, it's definitely got air going. We'll unplug that. It's definitely got air to it. I don't see any pressure on here, but I'm wondering if this gauge isn't just not working. Let me open up this relief here. It's definitely pressurized. Alright, let me put a little more in. I'm not trying to have this thing blow up in my face. Alright, let's put a little more in. I guess it's a good start. Holy shit. So far. Holy crap. Whoa. Alright, I have no idea. It's pushing up on the tank. I think this gauge is busted. It's definitely got air in it. Let me see if I got another gauge. Alright, let's try this one last time. Hopefully I don't crap my pants, scare myself again. This gauge I know works. Hopefully this should, well, I don't know, it's showing 8 right now, so maybe it doesn't work. Holy jeez. I think it's 9. I guess, you know what? Let me regulate off my air compressor what I can put into this thing. We're sitting at 50, 30, 20. About 10 right there. Alright, that's 10 psi. I'm going to shut that, pull that off. It's just a hair over 10. Let it sit for a minute and see what happens. I see it actually going down a little bit. And I know it's going down because this thing eventually will pop back on its own. But it's just a matter of where it's leaking from. It could be anywhere. It could be from my cap. So we'll get some soapy water and we'll spray it, see if we can see where it's bubbling from. So here I see some bubbles coming up on both my welds for these pipes. Here's one on the tank right here. Oh man, I got some leaks to fix. So, holy smoly, this got leaks all over. Yep, that's not good. Alright, I'm gonna have to run some more welds on here. I might as well check the rest of the top and see if any of the rest of the top's leaking. I would assume if that back section is. Maybe it's just that side. Might have got lazy over there. I got a couple little spots here. Well, like I said, now's the time to find out instead of once I put fuel in it. Alright, I'll get some markers and mark where all these leaks are. Great. I guess I know what I'm doing tomorrow. Alright, so just for entertainment purposes, because I was just thinking, you know, the top was only welded on the outside, whereas the bottom and the other four sides were all welded from the inside and the outside. So we might get lucky. The other ones, holy shit, aren't leaking. So let's check it out and see. It'd be nice if I just had to address the top. So you can see the top leaking there and there where I marked it. I don't see anything. That top corner. Oh yeah, there's a little bit here, here, and here. Man. Well, I'll be chasing leaks for a little while. Alright, so I got my mess cleaned up and I've got the tank over here kind of air drying. All the leaks have been marked. There's quite a bit on the top, and I think that's mostly because obviously the bottom and the sides are welded from the inside and the outside, so kind of had a 50-50 chance of the top leaking and like a 75 that it's good and 25 that it's not on the bottom. I don't even know if that's math is right, but anyway, I think that's why the bottom and the sides, there's like 2 or 3 little pinholes, but I think there was less leaks there because I got a weld on the inside and the outside. But at the end of the day, it's probably not the right welder to be using for this type of work. Now it does weld well for putting things together, but as far as making it airtight and watertight, well, there's probably better ways. Hence why I don't make tanks for a living. But I really didn't have a choice for this one because I needed something for the skid steer. So I'm going to end this video here. Tomorrow I'm going to come back out and just do some more little tack welds on here to try to get rid of the leaks that I have. And in the event that I feel like I'm chasing my tail with it and I still have these little onesies, twosies here and there, I think I might just go ahead and buy a gallon of Red Coat tank sealant and pour it on down in there anyway, because let's face it, the outside of the tank will be painted, the inside's bare metal. I wasn't really too concerned about it, but you know, a little extra added protection for me, sealing the inside of the tank will go a long way. So not only will you know, my ultimate goal, like you know, I really do want to try to get everything sealed with the welds. So if I can get most of that done and then seal it, the sealant will just be kind of a little added security or insurance, if you will. So anyway, I'm going to end it here because it's pretty much what it is, right? So you see the tank and got some leaks. I'll make some repairs and paint it up. So until the next time, I appreciate you watching. I'll see you later. Have a good weekend.